Proof Sanskrit is the first language, the language of creation. Hello, guys. This is Keys to the Truth. And this is another installment in that playlist for Sanskrit, or how it is referred to as Sanskritam, uh, being the very first language, the most powerful language, the oldest and most ancient of all languages, the Word of God, the language of manifestation and creation itself. So there are so many proofs of this fact that it would take me several hours to expose it. What I'm doing is I am just breaking it up into different segments, and hopefully you can watch this playlist whenever you have time. If you don't have, you can always watch it at 1.5 speed, which is how I usually watch all videos. And you can make the most of your time. You can also listen to it while you're driving, working out, whatever you may want. Think of it more of as a podcast of sorts. And if you need to look at the visual evidence, I am presenting that as well. But I am also, trying to as well pay attention to the audio in this case. And so, the first when somebody makes such an outrageous claim, because it is an outrageous claim, and I am owning up to that fact, um, you're going to get criticized, and the criticism is going to come because, like, how do you know? Like, what made you reach that conclusion? And then I shall present the evidence, as you have seen in several of my videos. There are also several other videos which I'm not titling the same. I am titling them differently because they dwell in other subject matters, which I think overlap with the Sanskrit a great deal. And that would you would figure that as much, because if it is the language of creation, the language of God, then it should overlap with almost everything in our daily lives, in history, and our present days as well. So, I mean, how do we know? How do you know? I get this question all the time. How do you know? How would you know? How could you know? There's no way to know. And it's great to ask the questions, and they must be asked. As I always tell you, be skeptical, and always, look for the evidence yourself. Do not, repeat stuff. This tendency of human beings to repeat what we see and hear has been weaponized against us. So we must fight back and be very, very skeptical of what we hear and see. However, we should not be so careless as to dismiss information. We should, weigh it carefully. And sometimes it is, if it strikes us as nonsense, it could be nonsense. It could be a psyop. It could be a lie. Or it could be information that we're just not ready to digest. And then you kind of put it in the back burner if it's, if you're having issues with it, and you come back to it. That there's no problem in that. Just leave it in the old memory pile, and then whenever you find another memory card, and you're like, man, wow, I heard that a few years ago. Some crazy guy, calling himself Keys to the Truth. What a pretentious name, right? You got to make fun of yourself, not take yourself too seriously at times. And I'm sorry I'm using that name. I apologize for that before, but I have to catch some eyes. I have to get your attention some way. And some of you might be ready, some of you might not. Some of you might think this is boring material. You already know it. That's great for you. But some people are, right at that, sweet spot of awakening where you're like, wow, this is right up my alley. And then you research it further, and then you may conclude that it is correct, or you may conclude that it is not, or maybe I'm falling short and there's more to the story. So take it in stride, in the sense that this can help you in your progress spiritually and in all aspects of your life. That's the intention I'm doing this for. And so, if it works for you, great. If not, leave it, or keep it there in your mental pantry, and come back to it whenever you need it in the future. So, that being said, let's talk about, well, are there other candidates? Immediately, what's the mainstream version? Because remember, one of the keys to the truth is going to be whatever the mainstream tells you. It's not that. It's usually the opposite, but it ain't that. It ain't what they are telling you or teaching you in mainstream academia, in the media, in the textbooks, in the school system. It's not what they're telling you. So what do they tell us? The official story, the official narrative is that there there was some kind of, we were cavemen, right? And we evolved. So, that's complete nonsense. Evolution of the species and evolution of mankind physically is complete nonsense. I'm not going to get into those subjects because it's kind of like a prereq for this material. And, if you're having issues with that, then there's hundreds, if not thousands of videos on YouTube's and books and publications of several researchers, like some pretty good ones, that debunk evolution. So if there's no evolution, there were never any cavemen. We don't come from monkeys, and there's no, you know, we don't come from that. Then what's the opposite? Then the opposite would be that we were evolved, like we were in a state of, more advancement than we are right now, and we have devolved, not physically again, but maybe mentally, intellectually, in our capacities. So think of that. They're trying to tell you like, oh, the monkeys start speaking and they start like making these sounds. I've never seen a monkey start speaking. I know you haven't, and there's some animals that might speak. That's a different rabbit hole for a different time. Like we have the parrots. That's one example. That can speak to up to a level to like a 2-year old or a 3-year old. There could have been some animals like maybe Narnia type scenario here, or maybe in a different place where they could have spoken at some point and they were killed or wiped out. Why? Just so they could, destroy the evidence and go in line with the bigger brain, speaking, and the brain's responsible for your speech, which it's not. Okay, you speak because it's a divine gift, a divine attribute that God gives you, but it's not the brain size per se that gives you that capacity. It might be some interrelationship there, but it's not the root fundamental cause, is what I'm telling you. Because look at the size of the brain of that parrot, the ones that can speak at least some simple sentences or words, and they can learn them. And it's much smaller than, say, a dog's brain or some other animal's brain. So there's that. Okay, anyway, I don't want to get distracted too much of the subject. So we look at that, with what the elites try to teach the masses, the sheep will meet myself included. And then, what's the opposite? So maybe the first language wasn't a bunch of monkey men trying to, like utter words. And maybe it was a more advanced language. So what's the reverse scenario? The reverse scenario is that we, possibly, as the scriptures say, and the ancient histories, they're not mythology, so I'm not using that word. The ancient histories are telling us like the gods or the divine beings taught us the languages. And again, you can fall into that trap where the fallen angels, or like the book of Enoch, is telling us, oh, they taught humans how to write and how to speak and this and that and the other. And whomever is the winner writes the history, right? But in this case, they're not really the winners. They're just partially taking credit, and they're trying to usurp what God gave us. So the Creator is the one that actually taught humans how to speak, maybe even how to write. The jury's out on that one. Some people say, writing is not so cool. Like the Native American Indians, they're saying like if you start writing down the language, then you start killing it. There might be something to that. Right now, I'm talking about the spoken language mainly. What I'm telling you is that if you go by that key, which is the opposite of what they teach us or what they try to brainwash us with, then the first initial language should have been a richer language, should have been a more perfect language, and then they gradually started devolving into these lesser alphabets, lesser languages that we're speaking today, and the age of English. So, for example, the age of English right now, how long do you want it to have gone, 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, where like the British Empire, came into power, and then the American Empire. So the English speaking spread out. And what's the story behind English? Well, the main history, which is fake, of course, like everything they try to teach us, is that it came from the Anglo-Saxons and the tribes and this and the other. That's BS. The answer's in the name itself. English is angelish, period. And if you've studied legal fiction, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. And word magic. There's a lot that's encoded in the English language and in other languages as well, where they're actually telling us the truth. For example, language is an anagram for angel Agu. And Agu means darkness, dark covenant in Sanskrit. So, I mean, how more obvious could it be? There's so many proofs that Sanskrit is the first language, the language of creation. And I'm just going to show you one more chapter here. So, I'm going to go by the complexity of the language itself. Which language has the most words? And which language has the longest words? And so that's going to be proof number 3, if you want it. And then go ahead and research it on your own. So let's look at the first candidate, the current winner, the current champ, English. Oxford Dictionary, over 170,000 words. Okay. There's some claims out there. There's some claims out there that this number is higher. There's some claims that Oxford Dictionary has over 200,000 words. Okay, so we have to take all these sources with a grain of salt. There's some claims out there as well that English could possibly have over 500,000, 600,000, or perhaps even 1,000,000 words. So, I mean, all these things have to be weighed very carefully, and we have to look deeper. I'm inviting you to look deeper into these sources to see if they're real or if they're inflated or fabricated or what's going on. And so I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but you as well. I mean, you should run with this material. First of all, analyze it, then vet it, and then you can perhaps, expound on it, like grow it, and take it to places that I could never take it, in the future. Teach your students, teach your children, your friends, your family, and perhaps they can, make the world a better place with this information. So that's my intent and my purpose here. Hebrew. Hebrew is another candidate. Let's look at other candidates, right? So, biblical Hebrew, 7,000 words. Modern Hebrew, over 33,000 words. Maybe I've seen some sources over 40,000, 50,000. Man, it doesn't look like that much. It's some other sources might say 400,000 words. So I mean, it's a good number. It's a good number. 600,000 words. English. That's for English. Um, so I mean, the amount of words, it could be a candidate, right? Because a lot of people love Hebrew because it's connection to possibly Aramaic, connection to possibly Christ, to the Bible. Um, there's a lot of stuff there, but again, the number, it's not too amazing. Latin, there's some people that say the total number of words produced is over 6 million, but that's total number of words produced. Is it really different words? I would be reticent to believe that, because Latin is usually a lot of less words, and there's sources that put it under 100,000 words. Several sources. Again, Latin looks like a very artificially constructed language. There's no villages left that speak it. They speak Italian in that area of the world. So where are all the Latin speakers? They're only in the Vatican, and outside of that, that's it. So, for example, in contrast, you have Greece, where they're fluently speaking Greece in the different villages and the cities, and you see that's a real historical language, unlike artificially fake Latin. let's see this Wikipedia. It says Korean over 1 million words, Portuguese 800,000, Finnish, Tamil. Again, these numbers look outrageously high in my opinion, since the average person uses well over 10,000 words to communicate. Um, but you know, there could be something to this. English 350,000. Um, you know, here you have, for example, Tamil. Tamil would be very closely linked to Sanskrit. Not as old, but you know, some people claim it is. But you'll see all these proofs. So let's look at other sources. English claiming over 1 million words. Let's see. Enochian. What about Enochian? 250 words. Well, maybe the language of the angels, but you know, would they only have 250 words if they were like divine beings? I think not. And to me, Enochian was really Sanskrit. Okay, language of the angels, as taught to Enoch. And of course, Enoch knows a lot, but he doesn't know everything. Remember that. Not everybody knows everything. The only being that knows everything is God, the Creator, and Christ, his Son. Okay, so Chinese, for example, 100,000 words. Chinese Mandarin, Arabic 80,000. Some people claim, right? Because there's other sources that say that Arabic has many more words, has over 12 million words. So that would place Arabic in the first running in this scenario, where I'm going merely by the complexity of the language, the amount of words, and the longest word. So this is what I'm talking about in this video. You could do several other videos talking about different proofs, but this proof alone is, again, sorry for being so repetitive, but I want to drive the point home. And then I get comments from people that are like completely out of the subject. Oh, Christ never existed. That's not the subject of this video, although it's very important and related, right? Um, so the words here, the quantity of the words, the complexity. Atlantean, what about Atlantean? What language did the Atlanteans speak? Well, this was created for more for like Disney, these sources here. Um, it's not quite that real, but you know, it's very telling, and I'm going to do that in another video. Um, for example, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that book that claims to be of Atlantean origin. How come they never published it in the original script or in the original transliteration to English or whatever other language? They didn't. They just gave us the English version. So why? Like why? What are they hiding? Well, they're trying to hide the real nature, right? As they try to hide all these things and lie to us. So, but from the names alone, Thoth and all the other names that they give us, even the name Atlantis itself, which in Greek is Atlantida, means something very particular in Sanskrit. And I've already told you that. Be sure to watch my video where the names of the continents come from, where I tell you exactly what the name Atlantida comes from and the Sanskrit root meaning. So I'm going to do a video on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and all the terms that they use there in Atlantean, they're Sanskrit. So that is a proof, and I'll do that video. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, where I'm telling you and I'm showing you with evidence. Zero dogma here, guys. I'm not about the dogma like you need to believe this. Believe whatever you want to believe. So I'm just sharing with you my findings, and you go on your journey, right? You don't need to believe what I believe. You do whatever you want to do, okay? Fine by me. I mean, the essence of being a Christian is loving God above everything, and loving other people and loving each other. That's it. That's the whole of the law. When Christ Yeshua was questioned, you know, in the temple, he said those. It comes down to do these two things, and he kept saying, "Don't judge other people." Over and over again. If you're free of sin, cast the first stone. You know, first look at your own self, and then start criticizing others. Okay, so I mean, and there's this evil that, you know, tries to paint Christians in a bad light by showing them as like just these pricks that are, you know, judgmental and are like wanting to send everybody to hell if they don't believe what they believe. I mean, dude, that's completely the opposite of what Christ Yeshua was teaching. Completely the opposite. So, I mean, that leads you to believe that, this is controlled opposition. This is, the blind leading the blind, the devil leading the opposition, and taking over these movements to, play that game where he's playing that Hegelian dialectic, and he's making people hate Christianity and hate Christ because they're not teaching the gospel or the doctrine properly. They're teaching the complete opposite. So, as a Christian, and this is a side note, if you're an atheist or a Buddhist or whatever, I'm telling you, I mean, read the texts. Don't believe me. Read the Gospels. It says right there. Don't judge people, people, and love God. That's it. Nothing more. Okay? And so this is like a brief parenthesis that I need to make, because every time you tell people like, hey, look at the Bible or read about, or I love Jesus Christ or I love Christ Yeshua, they're like looking at you like you told them to go kill their mom. And it's ridiculous because, it's something that happens because there's all these crazy, TV evangelists and all these people that actually work for the devil. And they're like, instilling all these hate and all these nonsense into people, which is completely bogus. All right. But so, sorry for getting sidetracked. Anyway, I have proof and evidence that Atlantean is actually Sanskrit. I'll do that in another video. So, what is this other nonsense about Proto-European languages? Proto-Indo-European. That's the mainstream right there. You can read up on it. I'm not going to waste your time here, but you can look. That's the mainstream. And then they have this tree with all the languages and how they came from a root language, which is for example the word mom here. That root, they're trying to say it's some language that was lost in time. It was monkeys uttering some crazy intelligible sounds, just like I am doing right now. I apologize for my horrible English pronunciation. I am dyslexic. I also have a terrible ache, and I'm not very good at speaking. That's why sometimes I do the silent videos. I give you guys a break, but some people complain to me sometimes as well, like, hey, you need to speak. Okay, so I'm speaking. But anyway, this is the BS they sell you. Oh, it got lost in the past somewhere, in the resets, or in the distance, or in the destructions. It didn't get lost because the word of God is eternal by definition. It says so in the Bible. It says so in the Vedas, in the Vedanta, in the yogic scriptures. So the word of God is going to last no matter what. Okay. So then we have this tree. I like this little drawing here, the depiction. You have all these languages: English, Spanish, Bengali, whatever. They're telling you, oh, they split up. There was this Indo-European root, and then some other languages came from. This is nonsense. But I like the depiction because here at the base, at the root is mula in Sanskrit. Dara is base, mula, dara, just like the first chakra. Dara is the base of the triangle, the earth, the base. So here you would have Sanskrit, and that's the reality of things, but they put it somewhere in there. They hide it there. They want to try to hide that fact that English, German, Finnish, even Mayan, all the Native American languages come from Sanskrit. I'll give you evidence and proof for all this, okay? I'm not making nonsensical claims here. I'm going to back it up, but I'm not going to do it in one video because it's going to be more than 5-10 hours. So I'm going to break it down. Just be patient. Do your own studying on this, researching, and I'm going to do it as fast as I can because I have a lot of other subjects that I'm covering. If you look at my videos, I'm covering subjects like a wide range of subject matters, and it's not easy. It's like, I mean, it's not my full-time job. I wish it was, but if you can support, if you like the material, please share it, like it, subscribe, and why not? If you can become a patron, just look me up, Keys to the Truth on Patreon, and I would greatly appreciate that. I'm doing this like as a hobby because it's something that I love doing, and I want to share it with you because God's it's compelling me to share it. Because I just do this for myself and my family, like day in and day out. So this is the nonsense from academia that you get. I like, and now let's look at Sanskrit. Let's look at my evidence for Sanskrit. How many words in the Sanskrit language, which is called Samskrita? Look at this one. Boom. The richest language in the world. It has more words than any other language. At present, Sanskrit dictionary has 102.78 billion words. Read that again. 100 over 102 billion words with a B. There are innumerable words in Sanskrit for one word. Like I've told you in all my videos, there's so many synonyms, like you go crazy. I'm trying to learn sandwich, man. I'm really hungry, right? I'm sorry about that. What Freudian slip, huh? But trying to learn again. Oh my God! Somebody get this guy a sandwich. Trying to learn Sanskrit. It's easy. I love doing it, but I mean, you feel like you're walking in water, like in the ocean, like in the shore, because you're not getting anywhere. You know, but I'm still, going ahead. I'm trucking on, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can and as fast as I can and share it with you. Because you can learn thousands of words and you're still completely ignorant, which is the state of being a human being. You can learn so many things and you're still going to be ignorant. So that's we have to like really stay in that humility, in that space where like we know we're ignorant. We're not getting a big head. We're not getting arrogant, because remember, God hates arrogance like nothing else. It's one of the things that He loathes. For example, every noun in Sanskrit has 24 different forms. The declinations are unreal. There are just so many. But it's very easy to learn. It's very easy to learn. It's very fun. Um, Many words that it's difficult. It's not taught properly. It's very easy to learn. And with YouTube, you can learn very easily. Right now, less than 1% of people from India, know Sanskrit, because it was mostly reserved for the higher, the Brahmin class, the priests that had access to the devas, to the actual gods, which were the fallen deities. Like, remember, the fallen angels spoke Sanskrit. Why? Because God taught them the Sanskrit. All the angels speak Sanskrit. They all know Sanskrit. Um, so it's been attacked throughout the language, throughout the ages. But for example, Sanskrit is considered the best language for natural language processing. Guess where most programmers and computer coders are from? And guess what their mental processes naturally are, culturally? Sanskrit, you need 2-3 years to kind of master the language. I mean, I wouldn't say that. That's a bold claim right there. You take a lot longer, because you could learn 10 languages, 20 languages, and you still wouldn't even know a fraction of Sanskrit. But it's still fun to learn, and I think it's a must that we get back to that matrika. Matrika is another video, but it's the mother tongue of creation. It's the Word of God. Um, it's Christ Himself, in the flesh, and some people just fall for this. I've been getting so many comments about astrotheology and people thinking Christ is just a myth and an astrological, symbol. I mean, yes, He's a symbol, but if, I give you a symbol for a dog and I ban dogs from existence from a city, and then I start telling you, gaslighting you, and telling you that, oh, dogs are just a symbol for, male depravity or servitude or friendship or whatever the case may be. Oh, there through the ages you start. Oh, dogs never existed. They're just a symbol. Don't fall into those traps of the enemy. They're just so easy to see through, but they're so effective. People fall for them. I've shown you, this is not a video about Christ, but again, I come back to the subject because of the comments, and I need to address them probably in a different video. But anyway, did Christ know Sanskrit? Of course He knew Sanskrit. Who do you think invented it? Okay, it was, the histories say that Shiva taught Sanskrit to humanity and to the other devas, to the other demigods, which were the angels. And and then he taught humans, and he spent some time here on Earth, and then he left Earth. So I mean, there's that connection there with what John is saying in John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and it's just pretty amazing. Like the parallels, I need to do videos on those parallels as well, where they're talking about that, and John's talking about that, and the Vedas and the yoga scriptures are all talking about the same thing. Be sure to watch my video, Om Namah Shivaya Decoded. Again, Om Namah Shivaya Decoded, where I tell you exactly that Shiva is the same as Yeshua Christ. They're the same, and the mantra is encoding that reality there, and that history, that precognition that the sages had, because he comes to earth whenever he feels like coming to earth, whenever we need him, but whenever he also wants to come. Anyway, and if he came to America, he would be called Jesus. If he came to another country, he'd probably be called something else. So the nomenclature is important, but it's not everything. So I mean, you have to take that into account. Anyway, and there's different ages. I mean, you see it in the pyramids, you see it in the megalithic structures. If you travel, I'm gonna do some videos about some travels I had recently, like across America. Just unbelievable, guys. That I want to share with you some images, some insights, and Sanskrit as well, because there's so much Sanskrit in the Native American tongues that you wouldn't believe it. So anyway, it says here, Sanskrit's growing constantly. You bet it is, because they're using it to program AI. And I'm getting ahead of myself again. That's another video. Sanskrit's being used to program AI. And like, why wouldn't they use it? Because it's the language of creation.
In India, thousands of years ago, lived the rishis, the ancient seers or sages. They expressed their lofty spiritual insights in graceful verses and skillful prose, all composed in a remarkable language, a language unlike any other, the language known as Sanskrit. Its name is derived from the word Samskrita, which means elegant, refined, flawless, perfect. It's also called Devavani or Girvani, which mean language of the gods. This distinguished language is granted a divine status because of its unique beginnings. Whereas other languages are clearly the product of human culture, Sanskrit is believed to be of divine origin. It is said to be aparusheya, not created by man. This bold claim is based on the fact that it is the language of the Vedas, the source scriptures for the entire Hindu tradition. The very first use of Sanskrit is found in the Rig Veda Samhita, the most ancient part of the Vedas. Western scholars estimate this text to be more than 3,500 years old, but traditional Indian scholars allege that it's actually timeless, beginningless, eternal. How could they make such an audacious assertion? Those scholars attribute the esoteric religious and spiritual teachings of the Vedas directly to God. The scriptures themselves poetically say that they were exhaled by God, like fire emits smoke. Since God is the source of everything that exists, God must be the source of the Vedas as well. According to this traditional view, the rishis did not independently compose the Vedas. Instead, they discovered and gave verbal form to the knowledge that was created by God at the beginning of time. For this reason, the rishis are called mantra drashtaraha, the seers of mantras, those who discovered the teachings of the Vedas. Somehow, they were able to perceive what others could not perceive. That's why they're called rishis. Another expression of Sanskrit's divine origin occurs in a wonderful mythological story that depicts Lord Shiva as Nataraja, engaged in his wild cosmic dance of creation and destruction. While dancing, he played his drum, his damaru. With each beat, letters of the Sanskrit alphabet emerged from his drum, arranged in 14 groups. This arrangement of letters into 14 groups became central in the work of the great grammarian Panini.
The first and the most common is that of Lord Shiva's Damaru. Maharshi Panini, one of the ancient sages who compiled Sanskrit grammar, narrates that once upon a time, the Saptarishis, the first disciples of Lord Shiva, visited him at his abode, Mount Kailasa. Out of his desire to enlighten them, he offered them a magnificent view of his cosmic dance, and at the end of it, struck his Damaru 14 times. This series of 14 sounds, called as Maheshwara Sutras, form the very basis of Sanskrit alphabet, according to Panini's arrangement of grammar.
The language of the gods. Sanskrit was considered Dev Bhasha or Dev Vani, the language of the gods by the ancient Indians. The script is called Devanagari, which means it is used in the cities of gods. It was believed to have been generated by the god Brahma, who passed on to the rishis who lived in celestial abodes, who then communicated in the same way with their earthly disciples from where they spread on earth.
Another proof here, this is more of a bonus. The Georgia Guidestones, they have Sanskrit. They have other languages too, but right here you can see the Sanskrit. I'm not lying to you. There's the Georgia Guidestone, and it's got the Sanskrit, okay? They're not going to tell you which one is the language. They're using all these languages for people can read it, but you betcha that they're going to be using the language of creation, and they are right there. They missed that 500 though. They could have used the Sanskrit characters. Let's see. And here's another bonus. How close is Aramaic to Sanskrit? A few modern Aramaic communities, they also have some connection to the Sanskrit. Okay, so Christ in his last visit to Earth, it is said, it is believed that he spoke Aramaic. Some people believe he traveled to India as well. There's some information on that, but the point is, of course, he knew Sanskrit. He's the one that invented it. Longest word. There's these words, 45 letters in English, blah blah blah. 29 letters, 45 letters. Let's look at a real source for records. Guinness World Records. Guinness Book of World Records. What is the longest word? It is a Sanskrit word of 195 characters, which if we would transliterate it into English, it would be over 400 letters in the English alphabet. In Sanskrit, it's only 195. So Sanskrit by far has the longest word, the most complex word. Okay, it's this one right here. There you go. And this is what it would take to write it in transliterated Western alphabet. So, and you can research how Sanskrit is constructed. But for example, tree. There's so many words for tree, right? Like vriksha is one of the words. Vriksha, drew. Shaka, I keep using that word. Shaka is also a word for tree. And for example, on computers, a tree structure or a directory tree would be like vriksha vidana. And so you can keep adding and adding and adding because of the way it's constructed, and it's going to mean something else and something different. You can make up new words all the time. Okay? So, it's an endless language. For example, Dhatu is the basic building block in Sanskrit. And that's where the word data comes from Dhatu. Okay? And these are the basic building blocks. There's the alphabet, the Sanskrit alphabet has 54 letters, more than the English alphabet. But further than that, there's like over 2,000 dhatus, which are the building block, the basic etymologies in Sanskrit. And you can look for examples here for like smrti, memory means memory in computers. And that's where the word smart comes from in English. So the etymologies will just blow you away. Smrti means memory, smart, smrti. And they use it for programming in computers. Smrti Saketa, man. You can get as complex as you want. And let's look at, we can correlate this with the number of people in the world right now. They claim it's 7.9 billion, which is a bogus number. We'll know it's bogus. We don't know what the real number is. You could probably develop a strategy to find out, but it's not something I'm going to do. But you could. Anyway, my point is that at the height of our current civilization right now, we use a lot less words, and we use a more imperfect language and languages that they used to speak or use in the past. Sanskrit is dated over 5,000, over 12,000 years old. I believe it's much older. It could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years old. We don't know. We have no way of knowing that, and I'll give you that. But the point is that it's so much more complex than our current languages, even combined. So how many people lived back then? You gotta wonder. Maybe there were 10 times as many people, 100 times as many people. We don't know. And that's a huge mystery. So the dhatus are the building blocks of the language. You can research all this. Over 2,000 root dhatus. And you can combine them. How many letters in Sanskrit? 54 compared to 26 in the Western alphabet. Almost like about twice. The dhatus, over 2,000 dhatus. Chat, to chat, like chatting on a computer is to beg to request. It's unbelievable, right? When you start looking at these things. So there's chill. There's so many things. Qi, like in the power in Chinese, is to collect power. It's just endless. Devavani, this is also something that they call Sanskrit. Devavavani is the language of the celestials. Look at that. I'm not making this up. You can look at this. The Sanskrit language is the language of the celestials. What I tell you is the language of the angels, the fallen angels, and the good angels as well. It's the divine voice of God. It's the language that manifests creation. It's the voice of God. Look, it's the word of God. It's Christ Himself is Sanskrit, because Christ and God can be whatever He wants to be. He could be a flesh human being. He could be a symbol. He could be a divine principle. He could be a language. He could be whatever He wants to be. He could be a huge giant tree. He could be whatever He wants to be. So Lord Shiva is the one that taught the Sanskrit language, and Lord Shiva is none other than Christ, Yeshua. I tell you that in my other videos. I'm not gonna go an hour into it right here. I'm still gonna get people commenting on that, but go ahead. I love the comments. You can ask, you can comment, you can tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right. That's fine. Go ahead. That's what we're here for. Deva Vyasa, Deva Vavani, that's what it's referred to as in all the histories. And then we can get to the math. You want to get to the math? We can get to the math. If you have the 54 letters or whatever, and you want, like in this permutation combination calculator, you can calculate the combinations or permutations in the letters. How long do you want to limit the amount of the words? You want to limit it to five letters? You get the amount, like 3 million. Because Sanskrit can be combined any different ways, like all the letters and all the little phonemes, which are the dhatus, which are 2,000. And you can get, it can mean a number of things. Just, you can continue building it infinitely. For example, that here is to cut, to divide. And like that too, then that means the data, the unit that's divided. So, it's just, and then if you, for example, I know the one I wanted to show you, Akash. Here, let me look for it. Hold on. All right, this one is the one I wanted to show you. Kash. To go, to sound. So, Akash would be that which does not go, that which does not sound, because A means the negation. So it's just so many things that you can learn here. But anyway, going back to the permutation and combination calculator, you can set this, like, if you want to make the words longer, 10 letters long, you're well into, like, the billions here, 23 billion. And if you use the dhatus, and let's say you want words 5, billions and billions of words, right? If you want to go back to the letters and say, okay, the words are going to be 20 letters long, you're looking at, trillions of combinations or permutations. Here are the permutations, here are the combinations. Let's keep it at 10. If you do 10, that's 23 billion words possible. It could be more. There's no limit to the subset here of how long the words can be in Sanskrit. And now, so enough of me being a complete ignorant guy talking about this. Let's hear an expert talk about this.
Sometimes people ask me, how many words are there in Sanskrit? Impossible to answer. How many words are there in the English language? The Oxford Dictionary, large Oxford Dictionary, on the science one, has a vocabulary of about 170,000 words. Shakespeare had a vocabulary of about 30,000 words. Most of us have a vocabulary of around 50,000 words. Sanskrit, you cannot even answer the question. Why? Let me give you an example. And the example I'm going to give you is from a poet, famous poet, Kalidasa. One of Kalidasa's kavyas, minor kavyas, called Meghadutam. Meghadutam, as several of you may know, is one where there is no story really. Here is a yaksha who was Kubera's attendant. Because of a transgression, he has been banished by Kubera. He has been exiled for a year, separated from his beloved, and his beloved is there in Kubera's capital in Anakapuri, the monsoon. he sees a cloud, and the yaksha sends the cloud as a messenger to him. So in the first part, to the Megam, the cloud goes for the company. In the second part, to the Megam, the cloud comes back. No story, it's generally a description of nature. So that the cloud does not get lost, the yaksha is describing to the cloud what the company is like. Let me translate it. Vahya dana sthita harashira chandrika dhokyanya. One word. Vahya dana sthita harashira chandrika dhokyanya. What is the translation? In the garden outside, there is a statue of Shiva. Shiva has the crescent moon on his forehead, and the light from that crescent moon is lighting up all the directions. All of that in one scene. It illustrates not just the Kalidasa's beauty, it illustrates the fact that because of Sanskrit and Samasa, in principle, the number of words that can exist in Sanskrit is actually infinite.
You heard it from an expert, a scholar, Vivek DeVroy. He, I don't know the guy personally. He might be a great guy. He might not. But his resume is just unbelievable. And he's translated some of the biggest, classics from Sanskrit, and he's an authority. He's a bona fide erudite in Sanskrit. And he's, telling you the same thing. Sanskrit is infinite. There are billions upon billions of words, and you could, keep making more words. So, I mean, that's just, what I have for you guys this evening. And, I hope you like it. Hope you enjoy it. May God bless you. Bless our Lord Christ Yeshua, Lord Krishna, the Father, Lord Shiva, whom is Christ Yeshua. Bless him. Bless his name, the holiest of holies. May his divine light shine upon us, and bless you, the listener, as well. Thank you.